why they do 2,000 pound bombs. They could do smaller calibers of bombs.
Yeah, because they don't see the Palestinians as humans.
How are they supposed to kill Hamas out then?
Not with 2,000-pound bombs in residential areas. What do you think the conditions in Gaza were on October the 6th?
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
You don't think it was that bad in Gaza on October the 6th?
Oh, it actually was not that bad.
Brother, no, 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 no. Do you think that Israel is committing genocide?
Yeah, I say no.
Why not?
Why not? Because if you look at the civilian to soldier death rates, it is average compared to every other other urban conflict.
Maybe in comparative to the totality, but you understand that the rate and how fast that it's happening makes it a lot worse than a lot, right? Like, for instance, and in accordance to the population, 2% of the population was killed in 10 months in Gaza. 2% of the population. In the Iraq war, only 1% of the population was killed in 20 years. The Syrian civil war killed 2% of the population in 13 years. The Yugoslavia wars killed 0.5% of the population in 10 years. Russia, Ukraine, another pretty deadly war going on right now. It's killed 0.4% of the population in 2.5 years, right? The average monthly deaths are over 4,000, right? The worst year in Iraq of average deaths was 1,300. So in terms of rate, it's a lot worse.
Yeah, that's true. But
how would you define genocide?
If the population's it's an intentional killing of civilians with the goal or aim to wipe them out completely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good enough colloquial definition. I would wonder how you
like the part that they say. I mean, people say it's because it says in part, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean that wouldn't really be a genocide then. I think the UN says in part just in case like they fail to.
No.
Germany they failed to completely wipe out whatever.
No, see,
Jews or other people.
Yes.
They tried to, but they failed.
Yeah, but the difference is in Holocaust and genocide, right? A Holocaust is about the destruction of a group. It's about eradicating the group. Genocide can be more about destroying in whole or in part. And the in part actually comes from Raphael Lemkin is the person who coined the term genocide. He's the person who helped create the Genocide Convention, which is what the UN refers to when it talks about genocide legally. And he says in part because he thought especially that large portions of genocide could be done culturally rather than physically remove the group. You could remove its influence on education. You could remove its religion. You could remove the application of its culture in the real world, which would be genocide without fully destroying the group physically. And if you look at historical genocides, what have went through the international courts and have been deemed a genocide, none of them include a full wiping away of the group. The East Timor genocide killed 2,000 people in the first couple days, only ended up killing less than 100,000 people. The Bosnian genocide killed less than 9,000. The Rohingya genocide was only around 25,000. So in none of these instances is it the whole group getting killed. And actually, in a lot of these instances, it's less than what's been killed in Palestine.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't really see, because Israel also doesn't intentionally kill civilians.
What would
some fringe people do? But
what would your proof of that be?
Because they warn civilians with phone calls or leaflets, or they also have like safe zones. And
what about when they level residential buildings with little to no warning, knowing that civilians are still in there, and then they claim that they're willing to sacrifice up to 12 civilian lives for any Hamas general?
Well, yeah, it's because if a guy who, let's say some guy, he murdered your family, and the neighborhood sides with him or something, I don't know. So whatever, the police sides with him or whatever, okay, it's up to you to save your family. They're holding hostage somewhere. It's not really a good example.
No, it's not a good example. If someone harmed my
Yeah.
family, if someone harmed my family and then ran into school to hide, I would not find it justified to level the school.
No, but I mean, like, let's say, I don't know, a better example would be, what if someone's shooting a gun at you? You're driving on the road and some guy with his family, he takes out a gun, get in an argument, and then he takes out a gun and starts shooting at you on the road. And you have a gun too, so why don't you shoot them back, even if it means that the car would probably crash somewhere and kill someone else or his family too?
One, no, and two, that's not very analogous because none of the civilians, many of whom are women and children in these residential buildings or schools, are shooting at anyone. They're just there. And actually, Israel will specifically, in a lot of these instances, wait for these Hamas generals or members to come home so they know where they are. So they will watch them going home, knowing their family is there, and then bomb these buildings, knowing that not only their family is there, but other civilian casualties will be had.
Never heard of that happen.
You've never heard of that happening. They literally Israel leveled a residential building like weeks ago.
Well, I mean, I don't think they should be gay. I don't think they should survive just because they're hiding behind people.
You're there, you're down, you're okay with them specifically targeting residential buildings, knowing civilians are in there to bring down one or two Hamas members.
Then how are they supposed to kill Hamas out then?
Not with 2,000-pound bombs in residential areas. I don't know.
People,
Right? Not with very obvious war crimes being committed.
Will still how would you do it if you were Israel right now, and they just did a whole entire massacre on your people, and they took some hostages with you. They're hiding behind a bunch of civilians now, so you can't get them. What would you do? Would you just let them live, or would you try to find them no matter what and try to push them to give up the hostages?
Yeah, I think there's a conjunct. I think there's a conjunct, or there's a couple things in which you could do. I think one of the main things is understanding the predicating circumstances that led you to that situation, right? That October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum. So understanding what led to October the 7th could help you stopping it from happening again.
Yeah.
I think on top of that,
Why they did it? It's because they wanted to destroy Israel.
no, it's because Israel's been occupying them for 60 years. But also, hold on, I want to finish what hold on. We can go into that, but I want to finish what I was saying. Also, I think that you could do much more targeted strikes, having people go in rather than dropping 2,000-pound bombs. I think even if you want to say, well, they have to drop bombs, I think, hold on, let me finish. I think even if you're going to say that they have to drop bombs, saying that dropping 2,000-ton bombs that are never used in areas like this on residential buildings and other places is grossly inhumane.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Like, it is maybe a little too much. I don't know why they do 2,000-pound bombs. They could do smaller calibers of bombs.
Yeah, because they don't see the Palestinians as humans.
Well, Palestinians don't see Israelis as humans either. So
that's probably true in a lot of instances, but it's not true in many of them. And I think it's a lot more harmful. I think it's a lot more harmful of an ideology to hold when you're the party with all the power and the power imbalance, especially when you have members of your government saying things like we're fighting human animals, like we're going to wipe the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. I think that
to be honest, you can't blame them after they just massacred a bunch of random people partying.
No, I can absolutely blame them because they were occupying them prior to that. Like, what do you think the conditions in Gaza were on October the 6th?
Actually, it wasn't that bad.
You don't think it was that bad in Gaza on October the 6th?
Oh, it actually was not that bad.
Brother, no, fuck no. You realize that these people didn't have access to toilets, that they were pushed into areas where there was one toilet for thousands of them. Many of them were already ethnically cleansed from their homes. Starvation, disease was set rampant. They were literally occupied. The ICJ says the occupation constitutes apartheid. So what you're telling me is that in the Gaza Strip, where they lived under apartheid, that it wasn't that bad.
But the Gaza Strip was ruled by Hamas, not Israel. So why should Israel give them?
No. You're saying that in the Gaza Strip, where they were living under apartheid, that it wasn't that bad. That apartheid wasn't that bad.
Is Mexico living under apartheid in the U.S. just because it's a separate country and there's a border?
No.
Exactly.
Do
Gaza is
we
separated by
do we control the population registry in Mexico?
no.
Do we control their ports? Do we control their air and sea ports?
Well, the U.S. did for Cuba. Doesn't
Do
mean
we control? Yes, we occupied Cuba when we did that. It was legally considered an occupation. Do we control Mexico?
it's not. It's called a blockade, not an occupation.
Do no? Oh yes. When no, hold on. You're talking about blocking their ports. Yes, that is different. And two, that's also holding them under siege. And in international law, that's holding them under siege. What I'm asking you is, listen. Do we control Mexico's air and seaports?
No.
Do we control who or what comes in and out of Mexico?
Into the U.S., yes. Well, under Biden.
No. Well, no, we control our borders. Do we control Mexico? Who can leave Mexico or who can come into Mexico?
No.
Okay, so then we're not occupying them.